Okay, next up is our side reaches, our rainbow reaches. Rainbow side reaches, yeah. So we're combining our big steps aside with a big circle of the arms up and over and a little bit of rotation when you get there. So your legs are together, you're touching the sides of your thigh when you get there, looking down at the floor. Reaching up and across and over and finishing with the feet and knees together, feet and knees facing forwards so that we get that nice rotation in the upper body. Trying to brush the ceiling with each arm as you go up and over, and there's the balance aspect to it as well. Up and over. So the bigger, the wider, the further you go, the more you've got to worry about that balance. Into another classic, we've been working on this recently, our speed skater. From side to side movement, as we just mentioned, good for the balance. We're going to balance when we get there as well. Let's build up to it. I've taken my mat away because my feet are getting stuck to it all the time. So slight turn out in the hip, but keeping the hips and shoulders nice and square. Big side to the side, big step to the side, bend the knee, hinge forwards. At the moment I've got my back foot down onto the floor. Hinging forwards and reaching the opposite arm to that front leg forwards, which will help with the balance. So you could almost call this a side-to-side curtsy. Slightly different from a curtsy in the sense that we're not keeping the back upright. We're hinging nice and low, keeping those shoulders and hips square, and this arm is coming forwards as a counterbalance. Carrying on from there, try and unweight that foot at the back. Then try and get your side to side movement, turn it into more of a jump. Much more challenging. We're taking that plumb line all the way over to the side. Ooh, and trying to balance there. Last version of this, hardest version. The foot is off the floor. I'm doing quite a big jump and I'm holding it and I'm balancing and I'm staying there. My other arm is reaching out behind me as a counterbalance. Woo. I'm going to do 4 more. 4 and 3 and 2, whoop, and 1. I'm going to do 1 more back that way because that was a little bit rubbish on the balance, and if you can recover, even more amazing. Good job. So let's take our feet nice and wide. We're going to come down into some hip hinges, some wide leg hip hinges to stretch the backs of the legs, and from here on in we're going to be on the floor. Hinging forwards from your hips, finding that biting point for your hamstrings. Let's pop the hands on the shoulders, lifting the elbows up so that as you pitch forwards, those elbows are in a straight line from side to side. Ooh, and just noticing, how does that feel one side to the other? Let's extend the arms out. Let's circle the arms. Circle the fingertips from the shoulder, nice straight arms, a golf ball size circle, changing direction, making sure that neck is relaxed. The back of the head and neck is lifted, but the neck is relaxed, chin tucked in slightly. And then I'm just going to let my upper body hang down to the floor. Thinking of symmetry, which is it this whole class is about, let's just take seesaw hips while we're here. So that means keeping your legs straight, keeping your upper body really relaxed. And as I lift my head up, you can see that my hips are dropping from one side to the other. That's the seesaw aspect. It's quite a nice but strong stretch in on your inside thighs. When I'm in the middle, which is about there, yeah, I want that symmetry. So I don't want one hip slightly higher than the other. We're just taking the hips from side to side, so that if we do have asymmetry here, when we come into this position, when we think we're in the middle but actually we've got one hip slightly higher than the other, we can use the muscles we're using right now to get those hips level. And I can't look in the mirror and do it because it will just, yeah, messes with my head. And then I'm going to take my feet much wider, turn my toes out to the corners, keep my weight forwards over the hands, and we're going from side to side. Stretching those inside thighs. We've worked a lot on the hips and the buttocks today. Let's just stretch out all the other muscles. Noticing as you go from side to side, does one foot sit a little bit more comfortably on the flat on the floor than the other? And then turning to one side, adjusting the feet so that they're hip width apart, making sure that front foot is in front of, the ankle is in front of, or slightly, yeah, in front of your knee. Opposite hand goes down on the floor towards the opposite hand to the front foot. The other leg is nice and straight. You're reaching forwards. You're going to take the same arm as the front leg up to the ceiling. You're rotating those shoulders. Think 12 o'clock on the clock. And then you're reaching back to 9 or 3. And then you're tucking the shoulder in and stretching the ribs and the thoracic spine a little bit away in the opposite direction. So rotating that ribcage line, a bit like threading the needle. You could bend that arm a little bit, bend that front supporting arm, reaching forwards all the way up. Reach back and then rotate the shoulders. One more. All the way. And great job. Keep your feet where they are, as in where they're the width from one foot to the other, but turn to the other side. Adjust your feet once you get to the other side. So you've got to open them back out to hip width apart. Opposite hand next to that front foot, reaching forwards, reaching up, lift up, try and touch the ceiling. Push back a little bit. Thread the needle through and forwards and up and back and rotate. Forwards, up, back and rotate. Last one. And we are there. Great job. Coming down onto all fours. Just going to adjust. Actually, no, I'm going to stay sideways on for this next one. So from your all fours position, we're going to take a really nice C curve. I'm going to bring my knees together, feet and knees together, but my hands are normal, shoulder width apart, fingers facing forward. Spreading fingers and thumbs apart so that you're keeping that strength going in the hands and the wrists. From here, I'm really strongly going to pull my belly button towards my spine, tuck the pelvis under, trying to create the biggest C curve I can, but starting from the lower back, not really worrying too much about the upper back joining in. At the same time, I'm going to draw my knee in and push back a little bit. This feels quite nice. I'm taking the pressure off of my hands, reaching back, and then I'm going to slide forwards, that foot starting to cramp. Keep the foot on the floor, and just bring my chest over my fingertips, as if I'm trying to look over the edge of a cliff, which is the top end of my mat. And then same side, draw it in, round the back, stretch back, stretch forwards, keeping those arms quite nice and straight. So this is a little bit of stress, a little bit of stretch on that wrist. Belly button in, think about the lower back more than the upper back, pushing back. So this foot is nicely pointed, I'm getting that stretch there, and then reaching forwards. Bringing that knee in, let's try that all on the other side. So initiate the movement from the pelvis, tucking under. Then draw the knee in. As I reach back, I'm actively drawing my shoulders down towards my hips rather than having the shoulders up around the ears. So rounding the back and then extending forwards with the upper body, trying to pull my breastplate forwards a little bit, looking over the edge of my mat, nice straight leg at the back, hips nice and level, shoulders nice and level, rounding, scooping, extending, reaching, rounding and scooping. That would be a breath out. This would be a breath in if you wanted to do the breathing. Let's do one more of those. And breath in. Perfect. Come back to your first side. Bring your hands a little bit closer to each other. We're going to take a narrow press up. So in fact, just sit back here if you can. From here, my hands are closer together than they were just now. So I was shoulder width apart, now I'm closer together. I'm going to tuck my elbows in. My elbows are going to brush past my ribs as I bend my arms, and then when I straighten my arms they just go back out again. So tuck those elbows in from the front. We're here, we were here, so not there initially, and as I bend my arms, my elbows, the inside of my arms connecting with my ribs. You might not bend your arms that much, but I don't want this to happen. I don't want those elbows to go to the side. Okay, so hands a little bit closer together as I said, feet and knees together again. Knees directly underneath the hips. This time we're rounding the back, we're stretching back, exactly the same. Then we're going forwards, and you might be able to go a little bit further forwards this time. Then we're lifting that back leg so that it's parallel to the floor. Then all we're doing is simply bending the arms. The elbows tuck into the ribs. My nose touches the floor because it's quite big. And then I put that foot down and I draw, in fact, straight away, draw in and round. And then extending the leg, keep it on the floor to start with, then lift it. So that leg is only going to go up at the back the same amount that my upper body is going down towards the floor. It's like another seesaw. So we're looking at the symmetry. Let's go again. 2 more on this side if you can. Round the back. No leaning, lift the leg, start with it parallel to the floor, then tuck those elbows in. And last one, stretch away, so it's quite nice when you reach back with the hips to release the stress on the wrists. Nice straight arms, pitch forwards, you have to be forwards for this one. And whoo, have a little rest back, do some sea anemones, circle those wrists. I'm going to stay on this side, let's do all 4 on the other side. So drawing the knee in, round the back, pitch back. Angle yourself forwards. Imagine the hips absolutely parallel to the floor. Lift that leg up, the leg is parallel to the floor. Then it only lifts up because of the bend in the arms. Straighten the arms, leg in, round, scoop the tummy. Whoops, I'm leaning a little bit too much on this side. Obviously the weaker side for balance. Tucking the chin in, keeping the chin tucked in all the way actually. 2 more. Scoop the tummy, round the back, try and stay in the middle with your weight. Not leaning over to one side. Lift that straight leg. Elbows are in. Last one. Breath out. Breath in. Breath out, maybe. Breath in and whoo, coming up and back with those hips on the heels. Perfect. We are seated C curve. So feet and knees hip width apart. Sitting right up on those sit bones, hands underneath the backs of the knees, chest lifted, scooping that tummy exactly as we just did, creating that same shape that we just did actually, coming back to a balance. This class is about balance and symmetry. So I'm on my sacrum, that's the word, rounding the back, scooping the tummy, tippy toes are touching the floor, put the feet flat, round forwards and come up. You might only want to stay there. If you can though, round the back, come back onto that sacrum, stay in that C curve. Can you take the arms away? So we're balancing here. Can we do one leg extending and releasing, and another? Alternating 4 times. My elbows are lifted, my arms are quite ballet-fied. In fact, let's straighten them out, palms up to the ceiling. There's 2 straight legs. Nothing else has changed. Good. Opening out the legs, holding on to those ankles. I've already got the C curve in my spine. I'm going for an open leg rocker. Whee, and a fail. So I'm going again. Scooping that tummy under, and there we go. So this is a literal balance exercise. Doesn't have to be straight legs. I'm sort of hanging off my ankles a little bit, hanging into the back line of the body. Once I get back up to the top, and then trying to lift the chest just to finish off the line, scooping that tummy. That's what creates the momentum to go back, up, and not enough to come back up again that time. And we're lifting. Gonna do 2 more around the back. I actually prefer this to rolling like a ball, just because it feels a little bit more natural. So remember, legs don't have to be straight, but it just helps to get that spine. If you're sort of hanging off your ankles, it helps to get that spine nice and rounded. Good job. We are lying on our backs. We're going to take some pelvic clocks, followed by the Garuda 3 spine bridges, as I like to call it. I want you to think about a line when we do the 3 spine bridge from your shoulder blade, from one side shoulder blade down to your hip. You've got the central line of your spine, and then you've got the other line from the other shoulder blade down to your hip. So 3 lines parallel with each other down the back. Rolling down all the way to come down to the floor. Before we do that, let's take some pelvic clocks. The pelvic clock movement, especially the side to side movement, is really key when we come to do those bridges, the 3 spine bridges. So let's take a pelvic tilt, press the lower back into the floor, roll around to the left side. Let's call this clockwise. So we're going round to 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock is your neutral, round to 9 o'clock, back to 12. Big movements with the pelvis, not the legs. My legs are actually going forwards and backwards a little bit. My knees are going forwards and backwards a little bit, but they're not going side to side. 2 or 3 in each direction, noticing symmetry in your body. Is that second direction, is it a little bit more awkward? Probably is. Is there a quarter of the circle, a quadrant in that circle, where it's a little bit tighter, it's a little bit more difficult to get the exact same movement as you had on the other side? Okay, I'm going to actually pop myself this way so that I'm nice and square to the camera, and hopefully you can see hips and bits and pieces. So this is what I mean by, although I'm just doing the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock on my hips now, which is what we're going to need for our 3 spine bridges. And as you can see, hopefully, my knees aren't going side to side because I'm moving my pelvis independently around my spine, but one knee is going in front of the other as I pull the other hip back. I'm not shortening in my waist either. My waist is staying equal either side. So it's not a circling, it's not a shortening either side. Okay, so let's take a full, just a bridge, a peeling bridge. So tuck the pelvis under, all the way up through the middle, all the way up to the top. Send those knees away, relax the shoulders, and then reverse peel down. rolling through the spine. Let's go up again. Tuck the pelvis under, try and push every single vertebrae into the mat, all holding it all the way to the top. This time we're going to tip over. I'm going to let my right hip drop down and then bring it back up again. Let the left hip drop down, bring it back up. This is called sieving sand in Garuda. So this is how we're going to set up our coming down the other side. So do an equal amount both sides. Come back up to the top, hips are nice and level. Let that right hip drop down. Now take your reverse peeling bridge from your right shoulder blade all the way down that right line until your right hip is in the mat, which mine is now. My left buttock is completely lifted up, my left buttock is higher, and then I'm going to roll back into the middle. Equally weighted, both sides of my pelvis. Tuck the pelvis under, come all the way up through the middle. This time drop the left hip down. Roll through, down that left side of the spine, the left hand line until the pelvis is there. Release to neutral and then come back into the middle. Let's go up the other way. This time I'm going to push my right hip into the floor. My left knee pushes away a little bit. My left hip is now off the floor. My left buttock is off the floor. From here, I'm going to tuck the pelvis under, try and come up that right hand line to my shoulder blade, to my right shoulder blade. My left shoulder blade is quite unweighted. I'm coming back into the middle. Hips and shoulder blades equally weighted, shoulder blades equally weighted. Come down through the middle, through the spine. One more of these on the other side. Drop that left hip down. I'm not focusing on lifting the right hip up, I'm just pushing that left hip down. From there, tuck the pelvis under. The waist area, the waistband area at the back, the lower back area is quite difficult to feel, you can't really make contact there. All the way up to the top, I'm still focused on my left side. Right shoulder is pretty much unweighted. Come into the middle with hips and shoulders and then reverse all the way down. Just a nice way of looking at the symmetry in the body and thinking about being more onto one side than the other. Fantastic. We have got a couple more things to go. Some Criss Cross Abdominals. Going to go back to this slight angle. Not really anything to do with balance or symmetry other than I've always liked this exercise because it just works for me all areas of the abdominal wall, including your obliques. So we're going to have the hands at the back of the head, fingers not quite interlaced, but come up nice and high, tuck that pelvis under, push your lower back into the floor if you need to, bring those knees in as well, opposite elbow to knee, engage with your ribs at the front, touching opposite elbow to knee as you switch from side to side. Draw the knee in to make contact with that elbow. Try not to roll across your back. Switching from side to side. We're going to take, holding one side, hold towards the camera for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 3, 2, 1. Switch, 2, 1. Switch, 2, 1 for 10 switches. 8, 6, 4, 2, and la 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 la. Have those knees in. Cross your ankles over. Have a little roll around that lower back. Whatever you would like to do. I feel like we've worked really hard today. Woo. Maybe it's just me. I did actually film a class before this, so maybe I was a little bit ambitious. Okay, our last exercise, set exercise for the class, is lying on our side. So balancing on our side. Lying in a beautiful straight line if you can. So when I'm completely relaxed and I've allowed my underneath side to collapse, hopefully you can see my foot, my underneath leg is longer than my top leg because this top waist has dropped down, pulling that leg in a little bit. But when I get my waist lifted, my hips stacked one on top of the other, then I've got both legs the same. Both legs the same in length. Pushing down on that underneath shoulder, so the shoulder and the hip are the only points of contact. Hips are stacked, shoulders are stacked. I'm lifting one leg, I'm lifting the underneath leg, flexing both feet, lowering, pointing the foot, flexing the feet at the top and lowering. Checking with your spare hand that that waist isn't dipping. Lifting, flexing, lowering. Good, just checking the position of your upper body. Let's stay with those legs up. Flexing one foot, pointing the other. Marching feet, keeping that rib cage lifted, rib cage set at the front of the body. Adding your arm along your side for a balance. If you can, keep those feet going. If you want to add more of a challenge to your balance, add the arm waving overhead. Keeping the shoulder down. I've slowed my feet right down. Last thing here for a balance, flex both feet and just hold them up. Lift that underneath leg up a little bit higher, make a soft fist at the top. You're just going to lower that top arm really slowly. It's opposite your shoulder, it's at a right angle to your body. You're not lowering it to touch the floor, you're just lowering it to be opposite your chest, and then you're lifting it really slowly back up again. Keep those legs up. This should be working inside thigh, especially on that underneath leg. You should feel that wraparound sensation. Quite difficult to balance. Try and lengthen top of your head and your heels away from each other. Last one, as slowly as you can. Relaxing, twiddling those legs around to the other side. Adjusting clothing. Whew. So our first thing was letting everything collapse, then lifting up that underneath side. Draw the shoulder down, get those legs level, hips stacked, none of your waist, none of your ribs in contact with the floor at all. Shoulder down. Top leg comes up, underneath leg joins it. Flex both feet, lower both legs. Top leg only, underneath leg joins it. Work hard when you lift that underneath leg up to join the top leg. Keep the top leg where it was. So try not to lift it too high initially, otherwise you won't be able to lift that underneath leg up to meet it. But feel the work on the inside thigh, therefore the pelvic floor, one half of the pelvic floor on the underneath leg side. There's our symmetry again. We're lying on our side, but it's the underneath leg doing the most of the work as far as pelvic floor goes. Let's flex those feet. Pointing one foot, flexing the other. Trying to keep the legs at the same height, keeping that side lifted, placing your arm along the side if you can. Balancing here. As always, one side is better at balancing than the other. Great job. Adding the challenge of the arm coming up and over and returning. Seem to be able to do my feet a little bit faster now. Maybe it's psychological. Great, let's keep those feet flexed, the legs lifted a little bit more. The arm directly above your shoulder. Make a soft fist. Just to psychologically add a little bit of more weight to the end of your arm. Lowering so the arm is parallel to the floor, opposite your shoulder, lifting it slowly back up again. And again, 2 more if you can. Everything's starting to shake a little bit now. Whoo, lifting back up. Good job. Woo, and relax. The very last thing I wanted to do in this class was just to have a bit of a wiggle about and a bit of a stretch, but thinking about your tighter side, so thinking about the imbalances in your stretching. So a classic one, for instance, is crossing your legs. I don't know how comfortable you are crossing your legs, but there's a comfortable way for me to cross my legs, which that's not hugely comfortable, but I can tolerate it. This is my easy side, so put the other foot in front. Cross the legs over the other way. We're such creatures of habit. And then once you're there, let's take a rotation. Opposite hand to the knee, placing the other hand behind your back, rotating around. I'm going to roll around in between and in order to swap over. Remember, we're at the end of class, we're really nice and warm. Hopefully you're nice and warm. I'm going to do that same thing again on the other side, opposite hand to knee. So adding that rotation and then that lovely stretch forwards. That's made me think, so as I'm doing this, I've suddenly become aware, oh yes, so although I'm in my natural side for my crossed legs, this has reminded me, doing that flowing movement, that my left hip is so much tighter than my right. So I'm going to lie on my back, put that left ankle across, make a figure of 4. Circle the ankle there. You might have discovered something else. You might have discovered that your rotation on one side is much tighter than the other, in your upper back maybe, or your shoulders feeling a little bit tight on one side. Try and address it. Just have a little go right now. So I'm also taking hold of that leg, keeping the legs fixed, but just having a nice circle around. Very quickly repeating it on the other side. But the other side is pretty good. I don't really need to worry too much about that, although it still feels nice to do. Just going a little bit quicker, not spending as long on the good side. Identifying where are those restrictions. So balance in your body, as in don't always do your easy peasy stretches. Do the ones that you don't like for balance and yeah, just a healthier body. Otherwise you end up with some really good flexible areas and other rubbish areas. But also from side to side in the body. So my right Achilles, right heel is feeling a little bit inflamed at the moment. Oh yes, still a little bit. So I'm just going to pad through that from my downward dog. And breathing. Fantastic. Well done. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in class again soon.